Good morning, everyone. This is Shaugat Ali Shagar. Welcome you all, and thank you so much for joining with this virtual discussion. Today, we have a very distinguished guest who is very well known to Bangladeshi community and also considered as friend of Bangladeshi community in Ontario, Andrea Horwath. I would like to welcome Andrea for joining with us.
Thank you so much. And I'm really excited about the conversation that we're going to have. And I have to say, I'm really proud of the MPP that we elected from the Bangladeshi community, Dolly Begum, who's just fantastic.
Yeah, that is a part of our community history in Canada that we got first elected public representative in Canada, and that opportunity we got from NDP.
Yes.
And friends, Andrea is the leader of the opposition in Ontario Provincial Parliament and leader of Ontario NDP. Andrea, just at the beginning, can we welcome and congratulate you as the next Premier of Ontario? What you will say?
Well, I mean, that's certainly the plan, but it's really not about me, right? It's about putting forward a plan for the people of Ontario that helps them to build a better life here. So things like fixing our broken healthcare system, our long-term care system, making sure people can access the things that they need to stay healthy, like drugs and dental care. We're committed to, forming the government and actually doing things that make people's lives better, make life more affordable, and help people to just continue to build a great life here.
Well, it is less than 2 years from now for the next provincial election. Where do you see NDP in the next election, standing at present moment?
Well, I mean, we are going to do everything we can to form a government here in Ontario. We're going to campaign very vigorously, and we're going to make sure that people have a hard look at the Ford government's track record, and frankly, the Liberal government when they were in office for 15 years. They left us with a lot of disappointments. They left us with hospital system that was overcrowded and on life support, really. They left us with a long-term care system that was completely inadequate after 15 years in office. They didn't solve some of the challenges around affordable housing that folks have, and that's important. And so we're going to show the people of Ontario that you can elect a political party that actually acts on the things that are important to folks, and we're looking forward to doing exactly that. I have to say that the other thing that we've seen with the Ford government is some of these failures of the Liberal government are being repeated by the Ford government. And so things are getting worse instead of better, especially for families and everyday people. And that's just not good enough. People deserve much better than that. And we're seeing the Ford government, getting embroiled in the same kind of scandals that the Liberal government was embroiled in. And so, we saw the gas plant scandal. We saw e-health, which was a big problem. We just watched as the government, the Liberal government, created much more burden on people financially. I mean, they made a mess of our hydro system, and folks are really, it's hard for folks to make ends meet. And so we actually believe we can fix all of these things when we get the chance. And so we're expecting that chance in 2022 because these two old parties really are not, they're not making life better for everyday families.
So we know like the Doug Ford and Conservative Party is in the power now, and Liberal Party was in the power, as you have mentioned. Yep. And you talked about them also. Where do you see Liberal Party in the race of power in Ontario politics?
Well, I mean, I think that they're doing what they can to engage. I mean, they don't have any party status right now in the legislature. They have, I think, 8 MPPs elected. We have 40, and so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But we are certainly going to be offering people an opportunity, as I said, to vote for a party that's not the same old failures in terms of actually making the changes that we need and that people need. And so, that's supporting families. It's also supporting small business. I mean, right now, our government hasn't done that. I mean, we're in the COVID situation. People are really hurting. And our government hasn't provided any direct help for tenants or for small business, small and medium-sized businesses. We put together a very comprehensive plan to actually help small businesses weather the storm, because we all know that if they are not, if we lose a significant number of small businesses, it's going to be that much harder for our economy to turn around. And I know that a lot of folks in the Bangladeshi community are small business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they work in all kinds of different sectors of our economy, and so having everything closed down the way it did, it hurt the community for sure. And so we want to make sure that we can shore up those businesses and give them a chance to survive. Unfortunately, we haven't seen a plan from either the Liberals or the Conservatives in that regard.
So what you want to do for that?
Well, I mean, our plan is it's pretty straightforward. We wanted to have the government of Ontario step up to the plate with direct rent subsidies for small business. So up to $10,000 a month, based on a maximum 75% of the rent costs, up to a maximum of $10,000 a month. We wanted to provide direct subsidy to small business. We wanted a freeze on utilities. We wanted a moratorium on evictions. We wanted to see a fund set up to help small businesses convert their business to online, if that's something that was possible. So a fund to help with the costs of that, including staff training, including hardware and perhaps software as well. But also, as COVID has torn through our province, we recognize that small businesses, the ones that are surviving, may not have a lot of resources because their revenue was cut so badly to get the PPE that's needed, the personal protective equipment that's needed these days for customers. The changes in the floor plan, for example, of the workplace, making sure that there's plexiglass barriers where it can be installed. And so that fund would also help small business who have been ravaged financially to implement those things. And we wanted a special fund as well for non-traditional types of community-based businesses. Particularly the Black Chamber of Commerce asked us to think about that. We thought it was a great idea. There's a lot of really, really small mom and pop type of businesses that aren't traditionally financed, and a fund that would help them access some revenue to get through the crisis is something that we were very much in favor of doing. Unfortunately, we didn't see it. Unfortunately, Mr. Ford didn't take our advice.
And when you talk about rent subsidy, we know many people are talking to us that, especially homeowners, like many people, they rent out their house, like they have second house, they rent it out to other people. And during this COVID, because of some government decision, some people, they are not paying their rent, and some homeowners are facing struggle getting money from the tenant. And I know at least the 20 people are talking to me from my community. So how do you think it can be addressed?
Well, in fact, we had a plan for that as well, because we know that exactly what you described is happening all across our province, but particularly in the GTHA and other bigger urban centers, right? So what we asked the government to do is to provide a rent subsidy for tenants. Because if the rent subsidy goes to tenants, then they can pay the landlord. So you're helping both the tenants and the landlords. And we know that the federal programs, the SIR program, of course, where people get money, but the other programs for support for businesses, many businesses don't qualify. It's very complicated to get that money. It's also based largely on a $40,000 loan, which people already are struggling and don't necessarily want to take a loan. And I'm back on the business piece now, right? But there was nothing federally for tenants, residential tenants, and there's nothing provincially either. So we were trying to get the premier to understand that if you provide the support for tenants so that they can pay their rent, it's just makes all the sense in the world. But again, unfortunately, the government didn't take us up on that suggestion and that recommendation, and as a result, people are in the situation you're talking about, and folks are worried about defaulting on their mortgages. People are worried about going bankrupt. I mean, that's how bad it is. And this one little piece of help with direct subsidy to residential tenants would have really made a big difference for the 20 folks that you've talked to, and so many others like them. I mean, it's a great thing that folks find ways to augment their income and create a better life for their families by renting properties out. That's a great thing. But in a situation like this, they need to pay the mortgage, so they need those tenants to be able to have some income to pay the rent.
Nowadays, experts are talking about basic income scheme for middle class people of the province. We know former Liberal government launched this idea, and some experts brought it again in discussion during COVID situation. What is your observation about basic income scheme?
Well, there's no doubt that that the system we have now does not provide enough income for people to live with a decent quality of life, and so, as you said, the basic income pilot project that the Liberals put in place it's a shame that we don't have. It's a shame that we didn't. The government, Mr. Ford, canceled it because we didn't have the data that would have been available after a couple of years of that pilot project. Instead, it was just cut off, and so what we know is that it was showing some promising signs. I mean, folks were going back to school. They were renting better accommodations and giving themselves a chance to pick up their lives, if you will, and get into the workforce. I mean, there was a lot of positive things that we saw, but we don't have the analysis. And I mean, it was disappointing that the Liberals waited till the very last minute before the election to implement the pilot project because that's why it ended, because a government that didn't support it, although the Ford government said they were going to keep that pilot project during the election campaign, but of course they broke that promise, and now we don't have the data and information that we need. So I mean, I think that we need to really think carefully about how we go forward to try to ensure that people can buy groceries that are healthy and can put a roof over their heads and feed their families. Especially now, especially now, because as we were talking earlier about some of the businesses that are closing down, and the economy is contracting, and it's going to take a while for that to come back. And so there are going to be probably a lot more people that are going to be needing some financial support until our economy is firing on all cylinders again. So I think we need to be very, very aware of where people are going to be stuck when it comes to income.
We have a couple of questions. Most of the questions are regarding auto insurance. We know car insurance in Ontario is the highest in North America. Do you know, or do you have any idea what is the reason behind that? What your party can do to bring car insurance premium to an affordable situation?
Well, I mean, we've watched the Liberal government for 15 years continue to allow the insurance industry to gouge drivers in our province. We require people to have insurance. If you're going to drive a car, if you're going to have a license, you have to have insurance. And so because we require it, it's the government's obligation to make sure it's an affordable product for people. But in 15 years, the Liberals made a lot of changes that were better for the insurance companies and not for the drivers. And now the Ford government's making the same kinds of change, or making changes as well that are better for the insurance companies and not for drivers. I mean, Mr. Ford's government hasn't stopped the postal code discrimination that's been happening with drivers' insurance. They haven't done anything to get the rates down. And everything we've seen so far is they're making it harder for drivers and easier for the insurance companies to get more money. You know, during this COVID time, we asked the government to force insurance companies to cut by 50% their rates. Why? Because people weren't going anywhere. They were staying home for several months. The 3 months, people were staying home for the most part. So there was no risk of claims coming in. And so those premiums should have been, at least 50% of those premiums should have been, given back to drivers. But of course, Mr. Ford didn't bother to do that. So, we are committed to take on the insurance industry. The other two parties have failed. And you're right, we have the lowest accident rates in our province. We have the lowest per capita accident rates, but the highest insurance. And of course, we see the discrimination that happens as well with postal codes. But, again, we do have the ability to regulate the insurance industry differently so that people can actually afford their insurance. And we are committed to doing that.
And just I want to mention here that our MPP, my constituency is in Scarborough Southwest. So our MPP Dolly Begum, she organized a town hall on car insurance, and I was there also, and I saw so many people there. They were expressing their experiences, like how hard it is to maintain insurance. Dolly Begum was listening directly from the people. So I understand that as a political party, since your MPP is talking to people directly, you have better data and all the sufferings of the people, and we can expect that as a leader of the opposition in the provincial parliament, you can take bold steps to force government to make auto insurance affordable.
Well, we're going to do our best. Unfortunately, they have a majority government, and they've already turned down. We had a private members bill from Guratan Singh, who's from Brampton, and he put a private members bill to get rid of the discrimination, the postal code discrimination, and the government doesn't support that. So it's certainly a fight that we are not going to give up on, because you're right. I mean, I have talked to people. Some of the stories I've heard, folks that they buy their first car. If they finally save enough up, they buy their first car, used car, and they're proud of it and they're happy. And then they go to apply for insurance, and the premiums are so high that they have to turn around and sell the car because they simply can't afford to keep it on the road. That shouldn't be happening in a province like Ontario, where the accident rates are low. It needs to be overhauled, and we're the only ones that will do that. And I've actually had meetings a while ago when I first became the leader of my party. And that was 10 years ago, 11 years ago now, where I met with the leaders in the insurance companies. And I told them straight out, if I form government, I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you. So it won't be a surprise when we form government in 2022 that we're going to do something about insurance. Absolutely.
One question from Mr. Faiz Noor. Before 20 years, low-income group able to buy house or condo, but now they cannot afford to buy house. Real estate market very high due to financial restriction. Do you have any program in future for low income group can buy affordable house or condo?
We did talk about that in our last platform about making home ownership more affordable, about trying to get the speculators out of the market, try to get the the investors that from other countries around the world that buy up our housing and then leave it vacant, but they're buying it up as an asset for themselves instead of buying it up to rent it out or to provide housing for people. So there are a number of things that we've been looking at. We've watched with interest what happened in British Columbia around trying to get housing to be used as housing and not as just an asset for some investor. So yeah, I mean, there's absolutely he's right. We need to work on the ballooning costs of housing throughout the GTHA. It's gotten really unaffordable, and it's not even accessible to the fact that people can't buy in the neighborhoods they grew up in. Young people looking for a home, wanting to move in near family members or something they can't afford to because the prices have gone up so high. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on affordable home ownership, as well as affordable housing for folks that are very low income.
People always talk about long wait time in healthcare. They have issues regarding eye, dental treatment, and prescription drug. What you will be doing to ensure fair access to healthcare for Ontario?
Well, I mean, it's a great question, and certainly we're still committed to the plan that we had developed before the last election around a pharmacare program. And what that means is that every single Ontarian will be covered for drug costs. It's something that's long past due. You don't get charged when you go to the doctor. You don't get charged when you go to the hospital. But if you walk out of the doctor's office with a prescription and you can't afford to get it filled, then you're just going to be back in the hospital or back in the doctor's office down the road. And so it's actually a plan that's not only great for people, but it's great for the healthcare system too, because it keeps people well. It keeps people healthy if they take their medication, and prevents folks from ending up in the hospital or in doctor's offices. And we also in the last platform, and a part of our plan around how can we make sure everybody has access to the healthcare they need, we included a dental plan as well, because I don't know why dental has never really been something that governments have paid attention to. It's the only part of the body that we don't seem to be helping people to take care of, and a lot of folks don't have benefits at work, and so their dental work is not done when it needs to be done. That can cause all kinds of other health problems, and it's very, very expensive. Right? I mean, it's very expensive. And so we put together a dental plan that would help people to have access to dental. All those folks that do have dental plans at work, two things can happen. One is, particularly most workers, actually, once you retire, you don't have benefits anymore. So I heard in the last election campaign, a lot of people were saying to me, I took care of my teeth proudly all my life. I had a plan at work. And when I retired, all of a sudden, I don't have a plan, and my income's down because I retired, and they couldn't afford to keep up their oral health, which is not a good thing. The other thing is, if we do provide a dental plan, all of those company benefit plans, they won't have to cover dental anymore, and so they can either lower the premiums for their workers, or they can expand the coverage that workers have with the same premium. And so all the way around, it's a plan that, again, that we are committed to implementing when we form government in 2022. These are the kinds of things that really help people. Auto insurance reform, healthcare reform. The Liberals left us with hospitals, as I said, hallway medicine, and a long-term care system that now everybody realizes was in crisis, but it's been in crisis for years. In fact, I just was looking at some of the history of myself. I got elected as an MPP in 2004. In 2006, I was trying to get the Liberal government to put air conditioning in long-term care, and I was also talking about in 2007 in the legislature, asking questions about long-term care. And from that time right up until the last election, and even till today, we have been advocating for long-term care to be fixed. So yeah, there's just so much that needs to be done and could be done, and it just was so disappointing to watch those 15 years go by and none of these things get addressed. And here we have Mr. Ford taking things even further in the wrong direction.
So in 2004, you asked for air conditioning in long-term care. Probably today or yesterday, we read news in the newspaper that they are considering it now. So
yeah, I mean, but
in 2004, they are considering it now, after like 15 years.
After all that time, right? Yeah. And we've had some pretty hot summers, and we've seen some pretty tragic situations in long-term care even before COVID. So we'll see what the government does. It seems to me, when I looked at what they were proposing, it really doesn't talk a lot about existing homes that don't have air conditioning and making sure that they're retrofitted. And the other thing that people need to know is that instead of providing more funding to continue to be able to build more long-term care, as well as taking care of the air conditioning piece, the government has a new plan for the long-term care homes, but it's going to reduce the number of long-term care homes. They were promising 15,000 in their first mandate, and hopefully it'll be their only mandate. But yeah, but now they've reduced that number to 8,000, and our financial accountability officer has pegged the need at 50 or 60,000 new beds needed. But we also need to look at seniors care all around, right? I mean, a lot of families have a couple of generations that live in their family, and oftentimes they become the caregivers. So how do we support those folks? How do we help people stay at home? How do we support seniors overall? It's not just long-term care, it's home care, it's help with cleaning and groceries and stuff like that. That was all in our platform last time as well. And we're certainly not abandoning it. But I think right now is an opportunity for us to look beyond what we do now for seniors. Let's look beyond that. Let's build a system that has some choice in it, that allows seniors to be more independent, stay at home longer, support caregivers and family members who are helping out. It's really an opportunity to envision a new way of supporting our senior citizen population. And I'm excited because we're in a consultation process right now. My party is about to launch a consultation process about exactly that. So maybe I'll come to Scarborough. We'll have a town hall meeting. Hopefully we'll be able to have town hall meetings at some point, and we'll talk to folks about senior support systems.
Another question, Mr. Faizul Haq, CCP. We do not think it is safe to send our children to school in September. What is your party's role on our children's safety?
What we're hearing, that the mental health and the socialization skills that come with school are big parts of the development of our children. So what we've asked Mr. Ford to do is, step up to the plate and provide the financial resources that are necessary to keep the classes small, to keep the kids distanced, to keep excellent sanitation practices in place. We've asked them to support the idea of looking for other alternative spaces for classrooms so that you can keep the kids at a small number. And we're hearing from parents as well that they can't manage, with kids going back to school for 2 days one week, 3 days the next week, because parents are also workers and they need to earn their income. And so we're trying to get a plan adopted by the government that's been endorsed by a lot of organizations to really get kids back to school 5 days a week, but do it with a lot of investment in the safety measures that need to be in place. And that's what we're waiting to see the government do.
Dolly Begum is the history for Bangladeshi community because she is the first elected representative from Bangladeshi community, and NDP and you personally, because you are the leader of the party, so you make that happen for us. Do you think, can we expect more candidates from our community from NDP in coming election? And just want to know, so that our people can prepare themselves, what exactly you want from them, from a prospective candidate?
Well, we're really proud of Dolly as well, and she's done an exemplary job as a new MPP. I hear she's put together a youth council in the riding to engage young people in politics and try to encourage folks to be engaged. And that's one of the things that will help young people or anybody, frankly, think about putting their names forward. I mean, we're proud of what we've been able to do. We don't just talk about making sure we have elected people that reflect, who it is that lives in our communities. We actually achieve that. So right now, we have 50% of our caucus is women. That's the second election in a row where we've been able to maintain a caucus of 50% women. We have a lot of young people. We have great diversity in our caucus as well. We were able to form a Black caucus, historic as well, the first time there's ever been a Black caucus in the legislature. And of course, somebody from the Bangladeshi community did get elected. We have people from all kinds of communities, the Muslim community, the Sikh community. We have some really great diversity, and it makes a difference. It makes a difference because those voices are at the table, and they help us. All of our MPPs are very engaged, of course, but we're very I think cognizant of we're aware of the what people who come to Canada to live, who come to Ontario to live from other parts of the world, what you bring to our country and our province. And so I would say absolutely yes. If folks are interested, we have a very democratic process at the local level. So depending on where you live, what provincial riding you're in, if you're interested in putting your name forward, do so. The people in the community, the riding association, are the people that elect through a democratic process, through an election, who is going to be the nominated candidate that's going to run on the NDP ticket. So I really do encourage folks. I'm so proud of what we've been able to do. I think we're the most diverse caucus that the legislature has ever seen in its history, and I'm just so proud of that.
Now, I would like to draw your attention to a very sensitive but crucial issue. People from different countries, including Bangladesh, come to Canada, many of them, not all, many of them or few of them as investor. Later, they transfer money from country of origin to Canada by illegal means. Most of the cases, it is alleged that these monies are taken from the bank as loan and then laundered to Canada. Before pandemic, Bangladeshi community had launched a social movement against money laundering from outside countries to Canada. We are grateful to your party because your representative, MPP Dolly Begum, she expressed solidarity with our movement. Now, I want to hear from you, what will be NDP's position in stopping money laundering from developing countries to Canada?
Well, I have to say that it's a practice that I don't think is right. I think it's absolutely not a practice that we should be allowing to occur. That's why Dolly took that position in solidarity, and so does the NDP. It really is, because it's an international kind of issue, and it's the federal government's responsibility to address it. But what we can continue to do is support local community members in your awareness campaign and in your pressure campaign to have the issue addressed. And again, I'm really glad that this has come forward and that you're taking this action, because I think a lot of folks don't know that that's happening, and it really has an impact on families back home too.
I will take the last question from our audience. Without policing activities, society would not be safe, which I believe. But in province, people are demanding to reduce police funding. What is your opinion with people's demand?
Well, first, I would like to let you know that we actually developed a position paper on this. And so if you want, after the call, I'll have my staff people send you the link to our paper. It's called Ending Police Violence and Supporting Black, Indigenous, Racialized Community Members. And what it does is it acknowledges that there's a problem, first and foremost. And then it goes into what are some of the solutions to the problem. So we haven't called for full defunding of police, but what we have said is we need more mental health services. We need people to be able to have hope for the future and opportunity. We need to get to the addiction services dealt with, because police are being sent into these situations without the capacity really to address them in the appropriate way. And so, in the long term, may that mean that some funding will be adjusted? that's what we suggest, but we have to wait and see what happens. I mean, for far too long, we've seen the community resources be cut by successive Liberal and Conservative governments, and that's what has led us to this. Folks might need to might be interested to know that several years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so, maybe even less, the chiefs of police themselves were talking about not wanting any more money, but asking the province during a pre-budget hearings, asking the government to actually start funding mental health and addiction services greater. So even the leadership in the police departments know that there's something seriously lacking in terms of public services around mental health and addictions and other things as well. And we need to address those by providing resources for those kinds of services. But there's always going to be, I think, a situation where, as you've identified, where police do have a job to do in our communities. Unfortunately, they've been asked to do a whole bunch of jobs that aren't their job, and we need to fix that balance.
Do you have any action plan for illegal gun activities? Mr. Shanadbur was asking you.
For illegal
gun, like
gun activities. So I mean, it's really quite horrifying to see the loss of life with gun violence that's happening here in Toronto, in the GTA, GTHA, I should say, because it's happening in Hamilton, my community as well. And I have no problem with the banning of handguns in urban areas. I have no problem with that at all. And I think that that's one step forward to get the guns off the streets. But the other thing is, we have to think about, why do young people turn to gang activity? Why are young people, not being able to go to college and university and put a life together for themselves? And so we need to look at our education system. We need to look at the kind of attitudes that are prevalent in our education system. We need to have more guidance counselors. We need to have more mental health supports, so that young people, and we have to actually provide at the community level more engagement opportunities for young people as well, so that they're not left with nothing to do, and then next thing you know, they're hanging out with other folks who are gang members, or who are a part of that lifestyle. And so the young people need to be able to see that they will be able to get a job, that they will be able to earn an income. And I think for a lot of young people, they get pulled into this kind of activity because they don't see much hope for the future. They see a lot of barriers to success in life, and we need to start tearing down those barriers and giving those kids a fighting chance to to see that they can build a good life and not get pulled into gangs. So it's more than just a handgun ban. There's a lot of other pieces that we need to take into consideration. Unfortunately, the Ford government's been taking money out of community-based youth programs. They've taken money out of the school system, so that there was a subsidy that was helping community groups and sports groups rent school gymnasiums and things like that for after-school clubs and activities that were not necessarily part of the school. All of that cost has gone up again because Mr. Ford cut that funding. So we're going backwards with this government on those kinds of issues, unfortunately.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for giving us so much time. I know you are so much busy. You have parliament, you have so many things. Thank you so much. But if you want to say anything from your own to our community people.
Oh, well, I mean, in the context that we're in, I think the most important thing to say is thank you. I know folks have been distancing. I know they've been wearing masks and practicing hygiene. I also know that a lot of folks are frontline workers in our system, essential workers that are PSWs and truck drivers and folks that are in grocery stores and things like that. And I want to just say how how much I appreciate and recognize and acknowledge that while people for those couple of months were told to stay home, there were a lot of folks that were asked to put their lives at risk by going to work in the healthcare system and all of these other systems that are essential services. And so thank you for doing that work. And hopefully we won't have a second wave, or if we do, that it's one that's not going to cause as much damage to our economy and to families as the first wave was. So I guess my most important piece is just to say thank you to everyone, and hope people stay well over these next couple months or years or however long it's going to take for us to finally slay that COVID dragon.
Thank you so much, Andrea, and hoping to meet you in physical town hall very soon. Hopefully, we will get that situation shortly. And friends, thank you so much for giving us patient hearing and joining with us in this virtual interview and discussion with Andrea Horwath. She is the leader of NDP and leader of the opposition in provincial parliament. Thank you all.
Thank you.